What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm your host, Brad, joined by my co-host, Micah.
Hey.
And Carrie.
What's up?
So, look, we didn't record last week because of Memorial Day and because of news being slow, because we are on the precipice of simultaneously the Switch 2 release and the Summer Game Fest festivities, Key 3, as some call it. And there's also not a lot of news this week. But that's okay, because we're going to do something a little bit different this week, because me and Micah have finished Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Carrie has observed Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Yeah,
through osmosis.
And
I did not play it myself, though.
But
maybe now I will, because I suddenly have a lot more free time.
Yeah. So. Look, silver linings and all that, right? So
Exactly.
But I find myself compulsively wanting to talk about this game a lot. So that's what we're going to do on this show. So not a normal episode. This, of course, will be laden with Clair Obscur Expedition 33 spoilers. We're going to talk about the game freely, the story freely, the mechanics of the game freely, anything about the game. So if you plan on playing Clair Obscur Expedition 33, or you're currently playing it and haven't quite made it to the end yet, bank this one and whip it out when you've done that, and when you're ready to hear spoiler talk about this game.
Claire on my obscure till I gamage. Is that how it goes?
That's right? Sure. That sounds about right. But for those that are here listening, let's just get right fucking into it. Now, for me, so I finished the game yesterday. When last I left off, I was right at the end of Act 2. Which the game kind of teases you into making you believe that this is like, hey, you're heading towards the final boss fight. I was not fooled. I'm like, there still feels like this feels too perfect for this game. Like, this game I don't feel like it's going to resolve itself neatly. So I did the fight against the Paintress. And then I just kept playing because I was locked in. I was a parry god last night, so I ended up playing the game for like 5 hours and finally rolled credits on it. Look, I was in it. Like I when the game started, I was more of a dodge guy, and then I realized that like dodging is just woefully inefficient, right? Like, you want the parries, you want to be able to get the counterattacks and all that jazz. So like I willed myself into learning how to parry. And
the beautiful thing about this game is that it's not just. I would imagine you, Carrie, would really appreciate some of the sound design in that it's not just a visual cue for your parries. Like,
you get an audio cue too.
Mm-hmm. Most of them, you get audio cues.
It reminded me a lot of, and again, speaking as someone who only watched my boyfriend play it, but in a similar way to how like the Guardians in Breath of the Wild would have that like ping noise right before you could parry the big death laser. Mm-hmm. So in a game that is that seems very finicky in terms of its timing, I think having every kind of cue is very important.
Well, in fact, I relied more on the audio cues than I did the visual cues to execute the parry. Like the visual cues, like the problem with relying on those specifically is that a lot of the enemy animations are very fluid, especially as you get into the later enemies that really are like, like when you're fighting the Necrons, like those are like constructs, right? But as you start fighting more of the like painted adversaries and stuff like that, like their flourishes are much grander and they're not as obvious tells to be able to time this out. So the audio cues ended up being invaluable in that sense.
I had to close my eyes.
I did that sometimes too.
Yeah. Just because because the visuals will distract you from the audio, and I would just have to. I mean, I guess I could have just turned the the sound effects up, I guess, but the visuals, you're so used to playing video games, playing, very your twitch muscles are so used to visual cues that I would have to close my eyes and I could hear the audio cues louder, like I wasn't distracted by it. It's this game is great, man. This game is really really good. Um, and like you, Brad, I I immediately sent a text to Brad and Terrence. It was like, so let's talk about the end. And
Mhm.
I had a discussion with Terrence, and he picked he made a similar choice as you. And I talked to Brad about it, and then I did what I shouldn't do, and I got one ending, and then I went to the other ending to see it online, and then I dove into the comments section just to look. I'm not a commenter, but just to look, and some of those takes are just kind of wild, man. But yeah, I had a really good time with this game. I want to go back and play some of these harder bosses, and yeah,
Yeah, it's and you and I were joking earlier when we were chatting because like there's so like I really hope that this game like some of the things that they do in the game reverberate through other games in the industry for a really long time. Like just some of the things that I noticed as we were going through is like trust your players to absorb the story without it being spoon fed. Like I literally cannot recall a single scene in this game where you get like the exposition dump that you typically get from a lot of characters in other games where they just they'll sit there for 5 minutes and be like, hey, like let's give you the backstory of all this stuff that's important to know to understand the context around this. Obviously, like the most famous example is Kojima with the codec conversations in
Hmm.
like a Metal Gear Solid game that go through multiple cutscenes and stuff like that. But like just let the characters have conversations. Like I don't need to be told like there's a lot of complex lore in this game, especially as you get to like the last third of it, basically, where they really just start bombarding you with things that happen. But it's not done through, like a character like, hey, so like back, like after Aline went into the painting and da da da, like the Renoir made the fracture happen, and the fracture split the continent into multiple things, and it's like they don't do that. They just fucking talk about stuff that they've experienced and things like
Hmm.
that. And Renoir talking like, hey, I've been in this painting for 67 years trying to get her out and all this stuff. And they show you like they show you the things that
Yeah.
happen. Like they tell you more in that 10-minute scene where you take control, in that little epilogue scene where you take control of Alicia and talk to your sister before she goes into the painting herself. And you learn pretty much a lot of what you need to know just through them conversing. And then you find out how Mael came into existence in the painted world and stuff like that. And so like that's a huge thing. Like like it's so easy just to and I wasn't lost. Like obviously, like as the game was going on, I was confused as fuck because like there was obvious allusions to things. Like it was obvious that Mael and Alicia had some sort of connection, though it wasn't obviously clear what it was. And
Hmm.
there, it was obvious that the caretaker had was effectual in some way, shape, or form, but it wasn't clear what that was. It got really confusing too when the paintress was like cursing him out later on and shit like that. Um, so that's like one thing, right? Is don't be afraid to leave things unsaid, right? Like it's okay for your world to have a little bit of mystery. It's okay for people like there's like the big thing in this one
Who
is
the
you
fuck are the
right,
writers?
who are the writers and who are the painters and what is going on with this massive fucking conflict, and they don't even bother addressing it.
No,
Like there's a
it's this
throwaway.
like
Yeah.
higher level meta thing. Now, that does certainly set it up for something like a sequel to
Hmm.
explore, what that conflict is. I have seen one theory based on how Clea acts in cutscenes, especially in the Verso ending, um, where it's almost as if she's like kind of unaffected by what's going on around her. And there's some theories where like it's a painting within another painting, and that like Clea kind of knows what's actually going on, but she's probably the only one like in that family with like a real clue that like the rest of them aren't entirely real or some shit like that. Which, get the Inception bullshit going. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's this whole deal of like you have this kind of like micro conflict that is Aline and Renoir fighting over like Verso's canvas and whatnot, because Aline can't move on from her grief, basically, right? And then the higher level conflict is Clea just being like, "Can you guys fucking get over it? Because there's bigger fish to fry here." Like, so yeah, that's certainly leaves the door open for some fun sequel stuff with this
Yeah.
whole situation.
Something else I hope that future developers take when they inevitably rip this game off um, is as elegant as this game is with its storytelling. It's also pretty elegant in its like level design. And level design, it's essentially a maze, right? But and it does the thing that games always do, where there is a critical path that you can follow, and there is a way that you can follow it, by following the lights. But it
I
it
didn't. I didn't even
looks
didn't even notice that, honestly.
yeah, like you can if you just want to, if for whatever reason you get lost, you just look towards the light, and there are lights, strewn about. But like the thing is, you didn't notice that, right? And you were still able to navigate, right?
Mhm.
Or you were still able to explore, right? It's so elegantly done. It's not just here's a slab of yellow paint on a building
A
that you got to
ladder,
climb.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's a white ledge with yellow paint hanging from the bottom of it. Oh, I guess this is where I need to go. Like it's again, it goes back to your point of trusting your audience to be smart, right? I also really like that this story, it's an RPG, and usually RPGs are like, especially like turn-based RPGs evoke like Japanese RPGs, and like
Mhm.
Japanese RPGs, you're like a teenager that has to kill God at the end of it, right? Like this is such a really personal story with characters that are it's a mature story.
Mhm.
And when I
Mhm.
say mature, I'm not like people bumping uglies and you get to see
No,
titties and
there's no
shit.
like titties and guns, but
Right. Right. But like there's romance options and stuff, but like
are
it's
there?
classy.
Mhm.
There are. And
Okay.
But it's not explicit. It's not like you're
Yeah.
rewarded with the fucking sex scene that
No,
you
I know
like.
that much, but
Yeah.
I didn't know that there were like romance options. So no, I mean it is though. It is a very it's mature in a way that is still like rated T for teen though, right? Like it's a different kind of maturity. It is an emotionally mature game more so than it is like a sort of visually mature game.
yeah,
Um
yeah. And but they deal with concepts like one of my favorite characters is CL. I know everybody like has a hard on for Lune, right? Probably because she's like the more attractive conventionally of the two. But I kind of was drawn towards CL. And when you get into her backstory, man, like it's so sad, and it's
Mhm.
so like the way these characters are written, you you really do get the point of view. You really do get Alicia slash Mael's point of view at the end of the game, and why she wants to do this,
mhm.
right? And you know you it. it can be a hard decision for people. And so I chose Verso uh, because I learned from a very, very young age that wallowing in grief does not help.
No.
It will not help you. And but the game is like, here's this traumatic thing that happened to CL, and Lune doesn't feel like she has the respect of her parents, and and uh, you get Alicia slash Mael's like horrific story. Of course you want to, and this is, you are playing this character, or this character is, you come to grow with this character. This character is a teenager, right? Someone who has to grow up before their time, and you really want to, go to her and say, and choose her ending, right? But like, I get that, but at the same time, like, yeah, it just doesn't, it everything that Verso, a very shady character, right, by design,
Hmm.
lies through omission a lot. Um, but so it's easy to like not want. It's easy to not want to pick him, especially like if you pick his ending. You see the look that Lune gives
Hmm.
Verso at the end. Jesus Christ, man! Like if looks could kill,
Well,
and
that's the funny thing, and I want to talk about the endings in a little bit, but I really wanted to just even explore, like, because the game deals with such mature themes and subject matter, like the whole Desandra family is like, all of them are written really spectacularly, because like they're written humanly, like more so than
Hmm.
characters typically are in games like this, where you often find character, like especially in JRPG specifically, which this game is, I think, much more closely modeled towards. Like most of the characters that you find tend to be very tropey, right? Like you have like the gallant hero, and again, I like those characters too, and there's certainly a place for those in a story like that. But like all five members of that family both have positive and negative traits that are firmly put, set in front of you as the game goes along. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like Verso has like his family's best intentions aside, but to Micah's point, like he's very duplicitous and very shady towards the other characters in the party, because he has an ultimate goal that he's trying to achieve that he knows they won't want to go along with. And like even Mael, who eventually emerges as like the chief protagonist in this game, ends up falling, like ends up fallible in the same exact way that her mother was, which you find out
Hmm.
as you pick her ending, which her ending goes from like initially like uplifting, once you get past like the really sad Verso scene, where he's like begging her to basically end his life, but then you're like, oh, like everyone's back, this is great, and then it's a little unsettling when like you see Gustav like come back in, and Sophie come back at the opera house, and then it's obviously like really unsettling once Verso like appears on stage and he's like old Verso, but he's like, you definitely don't want to fucking, like he doesn't want to be a part of this thing, but he kind of knows he has to. And then of course like the last shot before before like the fade, like not even the fade to black, the snap to black, is like of Mayo like falling to the same like painted world corruption,
Hmm.
like the origins of that, and it turns into like a really like horrifying ending actually, where you're just like, oh, like this is absolutely like the wrong choice. Like I like a very monkey's paw, like, yeah, let Mael be happy in the painted world. Oh no, like
No,
this is
because
real bad.
ultimately, letting her be happy in the painted world is to essentially enable a delusion, right?
Right.
Like to enable a falsity so that she can pretend that, her brother didn't die, that she can pretend that she wasn't scarred up in that fire or anything like that, and they can just, you know, again, just pretend that it didn't happen. And that is a deeply unhealthy way to live, and of course that's going to start to come across in the form of that kind of, corruption of their bodies, right? So
There are
it's an
many, many
interesting way
people.
to sort of express that, I think.
There are many, many people who feel like males ending, according to like YouTube commenters, right?
uh,
So
yeah.
whatever that, but that feel like males ending is the happy ending,
Well,
right?
and but there is a point to be
It's
made, like with Verso's ending, like when you basically like erase like the painted world, like there is some sadness in there too, aside from Mael's fate as a result of that, and what happens to like the last vestige of Verso. But at the same time, like those characters in Lumiere, though they are part of a facade, also have agency and hopes and
right,
dreams and things they're fighting
and
for. Right.
that's the argument against the Verso ending that I've seen. Like that's the consensus, right? That each of those characters is real to them, right? Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
they feel real, therefore they are real. Even if the game says no, they're fake though, they're not, right? Like who are you to say that those people who believe they're real are not real? And it's an interesting question to ponder. But I felt that, for the sake of this girl and her family, in what I am perceiving as the real world, like, you know, you, I want you to get better. Also,
Yeah.
it kind of robs her of her own agency, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's another thing that I saw. But like at the same time, like we have to remember that like she's like 16,
Mhm.
17, something like
Right.
that.
She's a kid.
She's a child. And sometimes, that's another thing I liked about this game. The party members are adults and they are very much adult coded, right? Like they're not like, you know, high schoolers.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with high school protagonists, but I'm 45. I can't relate to that. So for purely selfish reasons,
No, but
I
like,
enjoyed
isn't
it.
like Gustav is like
They're all
32,
32. Like
They're
like
all
everyone in the
yeah,
32
expedition is 32 as
is
a result of
32,
the.
except for Mael.
or younger, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you
again,
kind of
like
have to.
I really wish that I don't recall characters written so just like so humanly is kind of the word to the best word I can use to describe that, because they're written like they talk like people talk, and they're written like like to have motivations that people have. Like there's I mean there's a reason why the 5 stages of grief, you know, literally exist, and it's just that Aline just got stuck on denial, and so did Mayel.
Yeah.
They refused to move on to like the next stage basically. So
It's
Yeah.
amazing. You can like video games are a power fantasy, right? Like,
Mhm.
and it's amazing. Like what most people do in their power fantasy, right, is that you're just a super soldier in armor and a with you're a walking gun,
right,
right?
and those games advertise like, oh, like you're embodying the character, like this character is
Right.
you, and like you're
Right.
seeing through their eyes and stuff
It's
like that.
amazing that you can have human like real characters and still have the power fantasy. Like it's amazing. I don't know how they did it.
Well, let's take a quick pause for a commercial break, and then we'll be back to talk more about Clair Obscur. Mikey, when we went to break, you were talking about like having relatable characters and power fantasy. It's interesting that like we've seen games. There are lots of games that have really memorable characters, well written characters. Like you think of the Uncharted series, for example. Like the character interactions in that game are really good. But there's just something about this game, just because it's grounded in more realistic themes, that just made me connect with the characters more than I would typically do and even something where you have characters that are really well written and well acted, and have like these emotional bonds that you can feel, but also there's a fucking Indiana Jones movie happening around them, so you can't like you have to live somewhere, outside of the reality, I guess.
And look, as much as I love like like it still does the thing kinda that like BioWare does, where it's like you do a mission, you go back to your hub and you talk to people, right? You do a mission, you go back to your hub and talk to people, and that's how you. But you can kind of regulate that,
Mhm.
right? You there are triggers, right? But you can go to your camp at any time and try to spend time with these people. And you'll run out of dialogue options at some point, and then you need to progress a little further. But it just you I think this game does a very good job of developing those relationships while you are playing and while they make the most out of their downtime. Like it doesn't necessarily feel like, okay, I gotta talk to Garrus, and then I gotta talk to Miranda, and then I gotta talk to Rex, and then I gotta talk to like it. I don't know. It feels a little more organic. I
Well,
don't know. I think they just
I
do it a little more
there's
elegant.
there's a reason why. This is one of the things I thought about. Like one of the other lessons that I hope gets learned. If you have if you have a 25-hour story to tell it in 25 hours. Don't try to stretch a 25-hour story across a 70-hour game, because that's where the fatigue sets in with having to do all this stuff. And because because like the main pathing of the game is so dense with these like emotional moments and like the characters bonding with each other and things like that, it almost makes the camping parts like the characters like are much like the characters, you almost feel like exhale in those moments, and you are too, because like there's all this other heavy shit happening when you're not in camp, essentially. Assuming you're not like gallivanting on like side missions and shit like that, obviously, as well. But like I feel like that those, again, they feel organic because you are truly alongside the characters, um, in that regard, and it gives them a chance to just kind of let their hair down a little bit, to get a little bit more personal things you can't do during these missions and stuff like that. But it just doesn't. Again, it's kind of illusionary. To some extent, it just doesn't feel as superficial as it feels in a lot of other games, and especially in like a Mass Effect, where like to Micah's point, you have like fucking 12 people to check in with on the Normandy
Right.
every time,
Right.
every time you go back, and so and obviously like your level of caring personally about those characters is going to vary wildly, from character to character. Like it's almost like when next time I go to play Mass Effect, I might role play it a little bit heavier, where it's like I'll have my characters that I kind of stick with and then I want to check in on and see what's going on, and then like, hey Caden, you over here, like, you
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
You're all right, cool. Like I'll catch you in the next one.
Hey, hey, Ashley, you still a racist? All right, stay over there. But
Speaking of
again,
this, yeah,
like you said, less is more, right?
yeah,
The fewer characters gives you more time to spend with them and get to know them and their incredibly fucked up stories. Um, and less. There's stuff there's plenty of stuff to do
hmm,
in the game, but like you said, if you are engrossed into the story, then you can just be engrossed in you can play the story, right? You don't There's no grinding needed.
yeah. There's a
Like
little
if
bit
you're
of grinding
a
needed
little bit
sometimes.
if you're
Oh, well,
good,
you could brute force it, yeah.
theoretically.
Like if you're a
Yeah,
parry god, like yeah, you don't have to grind shit. It might take you a little longer to beat the battles,
right.
but you can make it work for yourself. It's another thing I have down too. Like if you're gonna put side quests in your big RPGs, like that's great. We want to make them a little bit more diegetic than a lot of games. Like Clair Obscur does have like the minimal amount of, hey, can you find my wallet side quests, like especially early on when you come across the different Nevrons that are like, oh, I'm missing my thing that I need. Can you help me find it? But again, it's not like when you do that, it's not putting a quest marker on your map saying, hey, go here to find this thing and then come back to this guy. Like if you find it when you're exploring, cool, and then you can go back. You can just fast travel back because usually there's a flag right by them, and then you can complete that little thing. Or the other thing that I really enjoyed is have like again, they have all these like little caves and little groves and stuff like that just kind of littered across the map that you would find through natural exploration. Like I understand why they didn't do this, and I'm kind of glad they didn't do this, but like how cool would it have been if they're like, all right, cool, like the next place we got to go is the Stone Wave Cliffs, but they don't mark it on your map. Like they have the little icons to show the different, like, hey, here's the different areas you can explore. But what if they were just like, all right, cool, yeah, Stone Wave Cliffs, all right, explore, figure it out, go find it. And then like I think about how cool it would have been to stumble across some of those little side areas, like especially the areas that are very clear, like the one screen areas that are very clearly Final Fantasy VII inspired, where you have like the single art images that you can just kind of walk around in to just get a sense of scale for this like really interesting looking place. Like that's cool. Like I appreciate the fact that I didn't have a quest log that I had to check boxes and say, all right, now it's time to do this side quest. Now it's time to do that side quest. And of course the fact that you have like the Uber bosses just kind of hanging out on the map.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, yeah, you wanna roll up to this guy? Like, cool, have fun. Hope you don't get fucking curb stomped.
Yeah, waiting to jump their big head on your ass 24 times or whatever.
I fought that dude before I beat the Paintress, and I'm just like after a couple rounds, it's like, well, I could beat this battle because I have the timing down perfectly, but I'm gonna be here for 45 minutes just fucking carrying this fucking head.
It's annoying.
I do it. So.
Oh man, what else did I like about this game? You joked that the developers will take all the wrong lessons.
Right. The only lesson that any developer is going to learn in this game is more parries. That's it.
And like we're already like there's like parrying has been such a thing. Like that being said, like I like to see a different kind of developer embrace a turn-based system. I hope that's one of the lessons learned, is that not everything has to be some like finicky action RPG. I feel like maybe this is the kind of game to usher in like a different kind of renaissance of turn-based games.
I feel like this is I feel like that this is like the crest of that wave. I feel like that we've had a really good renaissance in the past 10 years of kind of a return to turn-based games. Like you look at the
I guess that's fair.
Octopath
you look
Travelers
at stuff like,
and
Deltarune, Undertale. Obviously the Personas have they've been turn-based.
Right, but Persona 5 was like the first one to reach the mainstream, I would say. In terms of
yeah, I guess in the grand scheme of things, like 3 and 4 were still relatively niche. I think 4 is a little like I would consider
a little bit more.
4 was like scratching mainstream success a little bit.
Yeah,
4 started attracting people like me. 5 hooked me.
Yeah.
And so, like just the way that they even beyond, so like combat, like we talk about parries, like it's cool that you can brute force your way through this game if you're good enough. It's also cool that for tinkers like me, like they put in the ability to build like the dumbest things possible. I literally have never respect characters in an RPG more than I have in this game. I was using so many of those fucking respect stones to reload skills and reload attributes to craft them around like the skill setup that I had and stuff like that. But the thing that's brilliant because, like I said, that's a system that is rife for abuse for certain types of characters. The thing that's brilliant about it is they keep the limiter on you until you're right before the end of the game, because until you get that picto that lets you exceed the damage cap, like you can build the brokest build you want, you're still only going to hit for 9999 maximum on every hit. But then as you go into Act 3, like me and Johnny were talking earlier today as well about this, and he's like, yeah, I wish they didn't give you that thing until you beat the game. I was like, see, that's I disagree, because
perfect.
It's perfect because to me, like, the Paintress is the boss fight that the game is building towards, and Act 3 is almost like not quite a victory lap, but it's like this is the story resolution act. And it also makes narrative sense for Mayel to go Super Saiyan in Act 3, given like what you uncover and what happens. So like getting that Picto at that time is actually perfect. So they let you fucking go ham and like, hey, you built these broke builds, cool, enjoy your 20k or more billions of damage per hit that some people have done out there builds. And then if you want to do New Game Plus, like, you really get to fucking go crazy at that point as well. Like, you can really go nuts, but we're also going to beef up the enemies to fight you. So like setting it up that way, to have that system in the game, knowing that it can be exploited, but they're like, you know what, we're going to keep a lid on this until we're ready to let it pop off. Like, we're like, you're still going to have the experience that we want you to have, essentially. And that's when you can start cracking off on some of those optional bosses, like some of the harder ones, because it's really not feasible unless you want to grind it out for an hour to fight some of those guys until you're
on cap. I was going to say, it also prevents, you know, when I play an RPG, it depends on if I really like the way the game plays. I just want to dominate, right? Like, right. I will sit there, put a podcast on, and just grind and grind and grind and grind, right? Until I can't lose because I'm too powerful, right? But like you said, keeping the quad 9 limiter on prevents you from doing that. And then it makes you feel so much more powerful when the shackles are off. And it feels good, man. Like, you know, like, yeah, man. People know what they're doing. They left Ubisoft and they knew what and look at them.
Is this the best? It's not really a job system, but like, is this the best like job adjacent system that you've seen?
The Picto system. The Picto system is really brilliant because, like you said, it's virtually limitless, right? Like, in the way that you can like really theory craft, and you can have everybody's got the same 4 or 5 characters that all have the potential to do the same thing, but everybody could have something different. And there are there's a ton, I don't know how many Pictos there are. There are a ton of them, to the point where they're like, yeah, you might want to favorite some of these so you don't have to keep scrolling.
I didn't even know you could do that. I wish you could do that, because I kept like looking for the same, but it was just so fun to fuck around with it, because it is so easy to like in a game like Diablo, right, or an ARPG. Like, if you want to change up your build, that's hard. Like, you have to like revamp through like skill trees and paragon trees and stuff like that, because like it changes your stats and you need to hold new gear and all this other stuff. Like, in this game, like I was just like, what, like, you know, when I first was having some trouble with some of the like the mid game bosses a little bit, and I was like, I need to probably pay more attention to how I'm specking out, you know, the team with the skills. It's like, what if I take Monoko and I put all these like health boosting Pictos on him, but I make it so that he can't be healed, but he does additional damage and also takes half damage because he can't be healed. And what if I also give him like a free revive, like in the middle of combat, so that now like he can just be this tank that can soak all this damage, but he's also there to pick up the team, and I get 7,000 hit points with him because he gets to get picked up at least one time, and I can also manually res him if I need to, and just like, so like, all right, this is my dude, this is what he's gonna do. And then I have then I have like Lune, and Lune is gonna be like the glass cannon. Like I'm gonna use all of her skills that generate additional stains on crits, but I'm also gonna max the fuck out of her luck stats that I'm generating crits like 50% of the time, and then to build up to her big I don't remember what it's
Elemental
called.
Genesis.
Yeah, that one. Like to be able to build up to that and just annihilate people. Like that attack like against the Paintress. Like I literally took off like half her life bar in the second phase with that attack. And I wasn't even that over leveled, or I wasn't over leveled at all. Like I just like that attack's just that fucking silly because it has like a ridiculously specific setup process to be able to execute it, but it works like amazingly well. So like
it's so rewarding, yo. Like
right.
I mean, if you're a tinkerer, like if you just want if you love like min maxing and shit, like this game is not for people who have trouble making decisions. Because you're gonna be like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But that system is actually really it's really brilliant, and it leads to so much creativity. I mean,
You know what it kind of reminds me of?
What's that?
The Ginny system from Golden Sun. in so much that like all of them, like, for those unfamiliar, like there's different types and you can align them all with like the adept of the same like elemental type basically, but you can also mix and match to create like different abilities and give yourself different kinds of stat boosts and stuff like that. And it's very flexible in a very similar way to the Picto system, with a lot of creative options to give yourself and your party to kind of expand your abilities in very different ways. So
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that game was an inspiration. Like I really wouldn't.
That is one thing about Clair Obscur is it is not shy about what it is cribbing from. Like,
and why should they be? I mean, it's it's very much reminding me of like the Apple method of kind of development, where it's like, hey, like we're not going to do this first. Like we're going to let all these other companies like beta test these features, but like when we do it, it's going to be really good, and it's going to be like the most optimized version of this system. So it kind of reminded me of that in a lot of ways. Plus, of course, like all the characters have, like specific weapons that you can get that all center around specific elements and have their own special stats and unlocks that you can do for those as well, that also feeds into the build and things of that nature. Having 5 characters is also quite funny to me and hurts my OCD, like when the first row of troops goes down and then and then you're stuck with 2.
Yeah.
There's also a boss fight,
like,
an optional boss fight that plays with that mechanic as well.
You can't like switch them out, right? Like some characters are taken out of the battlefield and you can't like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you can't, if all 3 of your, or if the 3 characters that you start with, you can't like swap out.
No, not
like,
on the fly.
Yeah, you can't even when characters are taken off the battlefield.
Right.
Like there's one character that I had this really grueling fight for a max relationship level for Lune, and the monster would like swallow some of your party members, and it's just like, what the fuck, man? And you can't like bring them back. The only way that I found out you can bring them back is if you break the monster. And then the monster will give one of your characters back. I don't know if that's with everyone, because like other mandatory bosses try to, vanish you.
From Renoir is just an unreversible death essentially when he does it. So
right, so you gotta parry it, right? I can't remember.
You can, yeah. It's a gradient counter maneuver. So
oh yeah, that's right. And but yeah, this boss, like it was the most exciting fight that I had in the game, because it's like my all around damage person Mael is gone, right? and my steadfast like Verso he's essentially like my jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like he can heal himself, and then I have Pictos where if he heals, where if an ally is healed, then the other people get part of that health, and and he was gone, and it's just Lune, and I'm desperately trying to. Lune requires a lot of setup to use effectively, right? And I'm desperately trying to use certain moves to give me certain stains. I'm even like free aiming. Like I'm like, please let me get a red stain. Please let me get a red stain. Please let me get a red stain. And then I once and then I got all four of them because I was desperate, man. At this point I was just like, you know what, fuck it, like pop, 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 right? And I got all four different stains, and I said, holy shit. And then I hit him with Elemental Genesis, and then it broke him, and then one popped out. It was amazing. It was such a I hadn't had a feeling like this in a game in a very, very long time. Where just like things were working, but it was exciting because I was like on the edge of my seat, like I was on the brink of death, and then bam, here comes Mael, and I had like two or three stocks of I can't remember what it is, what they're called, but when you use your specials and the meter goes up,
Mm-hmm.
and you gain
Oh, the
up to
gradient moves.
yeah, and then one of Mael's is like a phoenix move or some shit. Like it was fucking amazing, man. And yeah, like it was an exciting boss fight. And like all the fights, they're not as exciting as that, but none of the fights are like automatic. At least not for me.
Oh, no, well, it's impossible considering unless you're one-shotting something
Right.
because like you're so OP, like that's the only way that's gonna happen. When I beat the final boss, like when I beat Final Renoir, I was down to my last character. CL was the only person left standing, and she was relatively low health, and it was like a situation where it's like, all right, he had like a third of his health bar left, give or take, and I was just like, all right, I can play it safe. I was out of revive tints, right? So I was like, all right, I can play it safe and heal up and try to hope that I get an attack that I can parry or at least dodge to stay safe. Or she has maximum AP. I can go for her like 9 AP, like super move. I don't know if it's gonna do enough damage because I didn't have any like foretell to be able to strip off or anything like that. And like she nailed it. Like and I had roulette on her as well, so like every hit connected
Yeah.
for double damage and shit like that. So and I won, and then the game fucking tricked me because like they did the thing where like you have the character like when the boss like when it refuses to lose that last smidge of health, and it's like, oh fuck man, there's a phase 3, like god damn it, like I can't believe, and then Mayo like comes in from
And
out of
Mael's
fucking
like,
nowhere.
nope.
Yeah. And she's like, nope, game over. So I'm just like, oh thank fucking god, that's
Uh,
incredible. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is something that I was amazed that they did it. For my money, the Gustav killing at the end of Act 1, probably the most surprising character death since the one that everyone references.
Since Aerith.
Yeah, since Aerith.
it's super effective.
Yeah.
But the thing that was amazing about it to me is as the game moved on, it became like a contextual important thing to happen in the narrative. Like obviously like for Mayel that's hugely important. It echoes, her, like Alicia's same thing where she lost like a brother essentially at around the same age and stuff like that. But it wasn't a what's the word that I use? I have notes. I talked a lot about a lot of this stuff. Fuck man, where the hell is the note that I said? Oh, it wasn't a consequential death. Like my the fear is when you kill the main character like that early in the
Right.
game, is that like the specter of that character is going to hang over like the rest of the game, and he'll possibly be, you know, involved in like the plot in some way, shape, or form later on. Like I saw a video essay talk about they were afraid that when they like late in the game when Mayel is kind of not reviving but like reanimating like the corpses of a lot of the expeditioneers to help assault the city, that you were that like they were going to give you Gustav back into your party, right? You were going to get to use like reanimated Gustav and stuff like that, and a lesser game would have, right? Because they're, you know, they rope-a-doped you so well in that game by like, hey, like we built a whole ass skill tree for this guy, and we have like a whole like so that you really didn't see it coming. But they didn't do that. They're just like, yeah, like his death is important in the narrative and in the story, and yeah, like we got you, like we hired a big, you know, like a big name actor to voice this character that doesn't last past like 8 hours into the game. Like, gotcha, bitch. Like how did that gut punch feel? But like it wasn't the most important. It wasn't the central focus of the game, in much in the same way that Aerith's death kind of lingers over the rest of Final Fantasy VII, and she becomes like a necessary cog in the story in order for the character, even in death, for the characters to achieve their aims, essentially. And I just really appreciated how they took this like massively impactful thing that was legitimately impactful, but diminished its impact somewhat, like as the rest of the game went along, because they're like, no, we have like an actual like story to tell that's not centered around this one man, you know, that we framed as, you know, the central focus of the game.
Yeah, it's great storytelling. It is it subverts traditional, you know, usually women are fridged so that, you know, the obvious male hero can find the motivation to get off his ass and do something. And with this, like you said, like Gustav is, they kind of flip that, where your stereotypical male hero is just taken away from you, and they give you another, but it's not about him, right? Like it's about Mayel, and it's they and like the women in the story are the most interesting characters in it, and I don't know if people realize that. Like the game, especially in this climate that we're in, where it's like, I don't, girls bad, you know, like the most powerful character is a teenager. The women who have the the women have the more interesting stories. The 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 paintress, the person that you think is the proper villain of the story, is this woman. Like it's, I don't know. I just, and they're written, and like you said, they're written all like humans, and like so it's possible. So I don't want to see, you know, there's literally no excuse.
No.
And they're all white. So there's literally no excuse that anybody can come and say that this is, oh well, this is whatever they do.
Right.
What else
I
you
don't
guys
know,
got?
man. Look, the game is great, man.
Yeah.
The game is great.
Music's really solid. We haven't
Oh
really
yeah,
talked
we
about
haven't
that
even fucking
yet.
talked about
Oh,
music.
yeah,
That
yeah.
fucking that whole soundtrack slaps like crazy.
Soundtrack's
Holy
great.
shit!
Soundtrack's great, and that this was like this guy's first time really doing a soundtrack. To a degree, you can kind of tell that it's this person's sort of first day out as far as like a big soundtrack. I do think that there's a degree of inconsistency, and I do think there's almost like an inconsistency in terms of like the production of some of the tracks versus each other.
I only noticed it as you're going through Lumiere, when they tried to do the thing where as you go to different sections of the city, the audio, like the song changes, and they tried to do like the Octopath Traveler thing where they like very eloquently like move from one song into the next, but it's not handled 100% well, and there's some understanding there because you can't necessarily control, you know, the player's whims running back to and fro from different areas. So like I kind of get it. But the like I said, there was a lot of variety on the soundtrack for sure. Like you would expect a game like this to have a lot of really somber tunes and stuff like that. There certainly are, but there's also some fucking bangers. And again, like the big boss fights, like the ones that you need to get amped up for, like they did a really good job scoring music that's gonna like get you like fuck yeah, like let's go, like we're gonna like we're gonna fucking do this. It's amazing. Like Renoir's whole theme and the evolution of that theme, the battle theme specifically, and the evolution of that theme through those three fights is pretty cool, to the point where like the third version it almost becomes like a new metal song and stuff like that. It's really going through it. So very, very good shit. Yeah, the soundtrack's great for sure.
I think lastly for me is just the environments are really striking. And like the art design is pretty amazing. Every world felt like a painting, and they all have like different feels, especially like when you go to some of the optional areas. Once SK can like fly you to different locations, and I can't remember some of the names, but like Flying Waters was a trip. There was one optional area that was like a red forest or something like that, and everything was like red and white, and it was much more vertical than some of the other ones. But then they have locations that are like, you know, everybody knows, like the several beaches there, and I really like the use of color in the game. Like it's not it wasn't afraid to like just be different. And yeah, man, like it's each little hub area is a world that you kind of that is inviting and wants you to explore. You know what I mean?
And it's ironic because like the map layouts are pretty rote, like they're pretty pedestrian. Like there's not a lot of difference in the map layouts in this game between this and like Final Fantasy 13, which is like kind of universally reviled as having really poor area design. You know why this game gets away with it? Because it doesn't give you a mini map. Like if the game had a mini map, it would come under much more critical fire. But because it doesn't, and because it forces you to actually just explore the area yourself, even though it's kind of pathing the right way forward for you, it kind of gets away with it a little bit, which I find interesting. So, last thing for me, I just wanted on the record that we finally have found a dog that Micah actually genuinely likes. Because Minoko's the family dog, man.
Look. If the dog can talk and have the rapport that Brian Griffin has with Peter Griffin, then yeah, and can like do the moves of other dogs, then yeah, I okay, I'll give it that. Minoko, every character. Look, there's normally one character that in every like RPG, there's usually one character that I just can't stand, and it's usually the mascot character, right? Like as much as I really adore the cast of Persona 5, that stupid cat got on my damn nerves.
I got a tattoo of the stupid cat.
and it's usually like mascot characters. This game has two mascot characters that you interact with on a regular basis, and they're both sweet. I love them.
And again, like it's the game does a great job at telegraphing things without you realizing that they're telegraphs until you have context. Like watching Verso's interactions with Minoko and SKA specifically, once you understand like that relationship and how and what those characters represent, that dialogue makes all the fucking sense in the entire world. It's just hanging out there for you in plain sight, but you just don't realize it until you understand, until you get the full scope of what's going on. And again, they don't explicitly tell you this. You have to go explore and find out stuff for yourself, or get specific endings so that you see, you see characters in different contexts and stuff like that. To be able to do that, because the game trusts you to look for these things yourself. So
I like how the game also locks you into an ending. Like, you want the other ending, beat the game again.
Yeah, go or go back through, like, play through the entire, like, final area. Like, you can, like if you go back into your save after the game ends, like, it dumps you basically right before the assault on Lumiere. But if you want the other ending, like, you're gonna have to go through that whole end dungeon and final boss fight again if you want it. So
yeah, you gotta earn it.
Yep. So that's gonna be it for the show this week. Again, shorter show, and just because of the dearth of news, we wanted to do something a little different. Don't worry, you're gonna get a much longer show next week, because we're gonna talk about the Switch 2 launch and Summer Game Fest. A lot of shit happening in the world of gaming next week, so look alive for that one. In the meantime, don't forget, you can ask us questions in the Dense Pistols post office, which honestly is probably going to get like a 2-week delay just because of how much we're going to have to cover next week. But you can do that by joining our Discord, going to densepixels.com/fans. Of course, subscribe to the show on YouTube by going to youtube.com/densepixels. You can find this podcast as well as all the other TNP Studio shows on a podcast app of your choice. Just search for TNP Studios. You'll find us, Thunder Apocalypse, Black and Black Cinema, and Look Forward. And if you want to support us with zeal and financially support your favorite independent game podcast creators, go to densepixels.com/premium. It's just $5 a month to show us a little bit of love. That's going to be it for us this week. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you all the next time.
See ya.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.